Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Hello, welcome everyone. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my guest, Kate, the Chief Marketing Officer of Splash, thus emblazoned on her shirt. The fact that we matched today is pure coincidence.
I know.
It just kind of worked out that way. Before we get into it, I'd like to do a little bit of a warm-up that I learned from Splash. You know what we're going to do.
I know where you're going with this.
But we're going to stay seated.
Okay.
Because I don't want to mess with the camera angles. We're in a very fancy studio that I somehow found on the internet.
Yeah, we don't want to, mess the wood.
Well, or get it like out of frame or anything else. So do you guys have a name for it before I
don't think so.
No?
I think it's
the Ben? We should
the
just call it the Ben.
Yeah, we should call it the Ben.
Okay. Ben Hinman.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Yep.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna count out loud, and we're gonna shake our right arm from 5, and then our left arm. It's kind of like the hokey pokey. So follow along. If you're at home and you're watching this, feel free to stand up and do it. If you're out for a walk, feel free to do this in your neighborhood as you're going on your walk. Someone's probably gonna call the cops on you because they'll be like, someone's having an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyways, okay. Are you ready? We're gonna start with the right one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Left leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right arm. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. I always
gets the brain going too.
It does. That's science. I always enjoy doing that. Anytime I have a speaking opportunity, I do that with the crowd.
Oh yeah.
Because it checks everyone in.
Yeah.
I know he always liked to start meetings with it because it took you away from whatever you were doing before, because your mind and body, it all has to work together, and then
sitting like this and
right, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's right, I'm here for it. It helps you be very present. Anyways, that being said, thank you for coming today and making the time. You said you wanted to do an icebreaker about who would be sitting at your wellness table.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fun. I'm basically going to go down the guest list of this show.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing these once a month. It's only 12 people. And actually, I guess that's too big for a wellness table maybe, because usually it's rounds of 10.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to take an event planner and give me rounds of 10? Yeah.
So it was your idea, so I'm going to let you go first.
Okay.
Who would be at your table?
Yeah, well, I thought of this because I was like, I'm really interested who'd be at your table. But for me, I'm like, I'm going big in terms of like who I would love to be at my table.
Are you reviving people from the dead?
No.
Okay.
No, I thought about that.
Okay. All right.
But I tried to control myself. So Rich Roll, are you familiar with Rich Roll? Big podcaster. I feel like
oddly enough, I'm not.
Okay.
But okay.
So former Stanford swimmer, endurance athlete, big into wellness, worth a listen, kind of long form interviewer. Got really hooked over the pandemic, and he's kind of led me into other wellness areas that I don't think I would have explored. So I definitely want Rich Roll.
Any examples you feel like citing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been everything from like the wellness collection that you need to pull together to be, kind of fully alive. And I think he's also transitioned his life to be from a lawyer into really following his passion, and also is promoting like the sober lifestyle, and talks about how and why he made that transition.
Got it.
So read his book, and really a big fan. So Rich Roll, Dr. Andrew Huberman, which is a new Huberman Lab podcast, which I've started to really digest lots of wellness information. So would bring him in, and Robin Arzon of Peloton, because I'm have my own Peloton cult in my basement of the treadmill, the bike, trying to hold off on the rower, but that's my outlet because I need to be home with little kids and don't have like the gym access that I used to.
Okay.
Let's see, and then Baron Baptiste from a yoga perspective, really into his flavor of yoga and have been practicing for a long time. So I'd love to bring him to the table. I asked my husband this, and you can see the difference in our wellness journeys. He said Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I was like, fair. Would be a strong contender.
I would definitely
right?
have Arnold at my table.
It would kind of be cool to have Arnold at the table.
He's also very eloquent.
Yeah.
I actually get his daily emails. I don't know if
you
you
do? Oh, I
so
didn't know
he
that.
has a daily email.
Okay.
And it's been, I can share some of the things, but yeah, I'd totally have him at the table.
Yeah.
Not just from like the pick up heavy weights and like meathead perspective.
Yeah.
Because he obviously understands it, but he also, he's aging pretty gracefully.
Yeah, it's interesting his, also his like plant-based journey too.
Yeah.
We have a mural in our garage that says "Come with me if you want to lift" and has like old school Arnold. So
I have
not
that shirt.
surprised. So you do. Okay. Just eye to eye here. All right, so Arnold, we'll bring Arnold to the table, and then right now when we're filming, it's March Madness, of course, but it's also swimming NC2As, and my alma mater is dominating, and the coach there, Todd DeSorbo, has this great, kind of art and science approach to swimming and wellness of the whole swimmer, and I feel like it's more so much more cutting edge than when I was training. So would definitely have him at the table too, because he's taken our program from to new heights completely. There were like 25% of the USA swimming Olympic team this past round. So
That's
he knows
amazing.
his stuff. So I would definitely want him at the round table too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that would be an interesting table. With that many podcasters, though, it might be tough for who's going to get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's the only.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we talked about this a little bit just before warming ourselves up. I think it would probably be a lot of the list of the people I'm having on the show.
Yeah.
And it's kind of events industry people for the most part. There's with some it's basically events industry people, and sprinkled in with some doctors and some MDs. Have you read the book Spark?
No.
So I would probably bring John. What's his? I think his middle initials C or J Rady.
Okay.
And he's an MD. He wrote this book called Spark. I'm still talking about because it honestly it was one of those. It's one of those books that validated what I thought about, and then there have been a lot of. I think you saw it. I posted it on LinkedIn. There's been these videos coming out about the fact that exercise is fighting depression. Like the aminos and the proteins that are excreted from your muscles when you contract them are literally getting into your brain and helping your hippocampus from shrinking. And he did this book. It's from like 2008 about these schools that have PE first thing in the morning. And their kids' test scores are blowing everyone in the country out of the water.
Oh, wow.
Because they're optimizing their minds by optimizing their bodies. And it's pretty intense there. They do heart rate monitoring, and there's a reason Orange Theory works.
Yeah.
It's group fitness, and it's and they keep you in a certain target aerobic heart rate zone.
Yep.
So you inherently are conditioning your brain to then learn better and remember things more. And like he breaks down. The only bad reviews I've read on it is it gets too sciencey.
Okay.
Like
I got to read this one.
He gets into the receptors and all the things and it's a little tough to read if you're not familiar with neuroscience.
Yeah.
There's a few times I was like, hey, what does this mean? And
With your medical dictionary.
Yeah. But it's a great book, and you're like, oh, there's a reason why after I work out I feel good. And the things around depression and whatnot, it's also helps people who are struggling with that because it's something that they can control, and it gives them a sense of ownership in their life, and like it just. Yeah. Oh my God, it's a waterfall effect. So I definitely invite him so he could wow some people. And then probably the rest of the guest list from the show. Like I'm having a meeting with Janine Cliffs, who's at the Four Seasons, but she obviously understands that hotels are figuring this out and that wellness means different things to different people, which is really important. I'm also meeting with Julius, who has turned into, I'm calling him an industry analyst for event tech.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like he calls himself whatever. Like for us who work in tech, he's the equivalent of like a Gartner analyst, basically.
Completely. Yeah.
I'm curious what he's starting to see as to how companies are incorporating that through their event tech and or the RFP process, or what kinds of things is technology going to do to help with wellness. I'm just thinking through the list. It's there's only 12 of them. I definitely bring back Nicole and Liz because they're amazing. And talking about return on emotion. So yeah, it would be a very noisy table. I'd have Arnold too. Maybe we could just have two tables next to each other, and like Arnold can be on a swivel chair.
And he could, I think that's good.
Between. Okay. I love that kickoff. What I'd like to do for those people that don't know you, I would like you to introduce yourself and just tell people a little about yourself. I think personally first, because I think the way we grow up helps shape what we end up doing. And I think you and I have talked previously about your experience prior to coming into this business and why wellness is important to you. And so that's why I figured it makes sense to start there, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I mean, you don't have to start when you were like, I was born on, like, you just, because you played, you swam, right?
Yep. Yeah.
What about high school? Did you play sports in high school?
Played sports in high school. I started swimming year round, did the summer swim, but started swimming year round when I was 10. And that's when it got real on the swimming front. But my mom always made sure that I was cross training or just exposed to other sports. She was teaching tennis for a long time, most of my childhood. And so she really, that athleticism that you get from the cross training aspect, really important. But I played field hockey, started playing field hockey for the fun of it, and then played throughout high school and was sort of debating, do I try to get recruited for field hockey? I love it. It's, kind of checks all the boxes. Or swimming, I was having, incredible success as a high school student and could, get a scholarship and things like that. So, and really enjoyed it. So I wound up getting recruited for swimming and went to University of Virginia, as I mentioned before, for swimming. And had been, my whole family is really big tennis players. So I feel like I grew up in just an atmosphere of movement. My mom also was really supportive of like the mental health day. So growing up, I was always kind of doing those check-ins, like mentally, physically, like how am I? Do I need, should I go to practice? Should I, should today be a rest day? That sort of thing, which I feel like was before her time, and really like a good practice in just setting myself up for adulthood. But, had a great time swimming in college, although, got hurt and overtrained. And, it was an interesting transition going from, college athlete to, normal person. But a lot of those, you just couldn't have like 2.5 breakfasts in the morning, and also not waking up every day at 5 and training for 6 hours a day. I mean, it was a really serious program, but taught me a lot. And I feel like, just to your point before about being able to study like depression, just all of the benefits, having that as just a staple of my growing up, I think really like kept me focused and also like kept me in a great kind of mental health, state of mind. And so, wound up graduating from UVA. It was, the dot-com bust, 9/11, all of these things kind of happening like right after graduation. And I thought, where can I go? Because I want to keep this athletic background. I love sports. This has been my identity. How do I transition that? So I started my career at the U.S. Golf Association, which was great. I don't play a lick of golf. So that was kind of my dark secret working there.
I would only say I play.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. Yeah. But, it's fun to be outdoors and walk around and enjoy some sunshine. And some people, I've had some people ask, like, what kind of golfer are you? I said, I'm too bad to get mad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to lose a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of balls. I'm not there for the golf. I'm there for the fellowship usually. So
Yeah. It's a good like frame of mind. I feel like golf and my, just my speed just cannot mix. It just,
yeah,
it would be for the fellowship. It would be for the community. It would be for all of the fun things. Could play a mean round of mini golf, but that's sort of like where it ends.
and yet what'd you do at the USGA?
So I started as a paralegal, but I was dedicated to all the championships.
Is that what you went to school for?
No, I was an English major, so I sort of, wandered out into the world thinking like, hey, should I be a teacher? Should I be a lawyer? Like, I liked reading books and writing papers and communicating. So that's what kind of led me to being an English major, just continuing what I enjoyed academically,
Right.
Without deep enough thought on how to take that, into a career. But I do think it's, been a tremendous help in business.
Yeah.
But I was focused on all the championships. So U.S. Open, Women's Open, Senior
Wow.
Open,
Okay.
basically reading contracts for bleachers, organizing the security for Tiger Woods, making sure we had a liquor license in Bethpage. I remember working with these like municipalities, like, I need this liquor license to
Right.
come through. We can't have a, major sports championship.
So you were is it inappropriate to say that you were planning events as a paralegal, basically?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, and I moved into like helped on the hospitality marketing front. So I got to, got exposure to like the big tents and what these, big brands were doing and how they were creating, activations like
Right.
at the Open, and then also just our own merchandising tent and understanding what went into having like a football field pop-up shop.
Right.
At a large championship. And it was also like the beginning of, I'm really going to date myself here, but cell phones. So we had to figure out like, what do we do with people's cell phones? Do we like put them in a locker? Do we let them take them on the course? How do,
Oh yeah, because if they ring during someone's backswing,
yeah, what do you do?
people are going to lose it.
Yeah.
And they have a club in their hand.
Yes. That's when people get mad on the
Right,
golf
yeah,
course. Yeah. And in all fairness. So it was fun. It was a really cool, and I worked for a guy, Pete Bavacqua, who went on in the golf world. Now he's head of, NBC Golf, was head of the PGA. He's done a tremendous amount in golf and around these like championship producing organizations. So it was a really great person to work for, and kind of got my start in events that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could dig into your thoughts on PGA versus LIV and whatnot, but I think that's a different podcast.
That could be a different podcast.
That's not quite this topic.
Yeah.
And like golf, I think has just changed as a sport since the pandemic because so many people took it up.
Oh yeah.
Like you look at let's call it the behavior at Waste Management.
Yes.
Which is quickly becoming a very appropriate name.
Yes.
I mean, it might be like wasted management. Just I think, and then it's gotten more mainstream with Happy Gilmore. Like that brought a new level of exposure to it, and things have just kind of that sport has changed, which it's also much more accessible now, which is nice.
Yeah, it really, and even as a sport, I feel like growing up, you'd look at golfers and they didn't have the fitness that the golfers do now. I mean,
well, Tiger Woods is like training with the Navy SEALs. Isn't that like how he hurt his back?
Yeah.
Because he was like
One of the ways.
Well, yeah.
Probably a lot of answers to that question.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so then you left there. In your career, did that kind of start your excitement or thirst for events? Because you ended up in the events line pretty. Like you worked for a little company we're going to talk about because they've been in the news in the last couple days.
Yep.
That might give away when this is being filmed. How did that like transition? So you spent some time there, and then were you just excited about events, and you're like, I want more of this, or what?
Yeah, I think events, especially as an athlete, like events are like it's showtime, it's game time. There's the adrenaline. It's when all your work kind of comes together, and you get to really perform, and that's how I always geared up. Was always not the best like trainer, but I was really good at meets or games or whatever, just kind of able to to pull it out. And so I loved that I could carry that over into events and be able to take that into a professional sense. And it's exciting, it's really, and not everyone gets that opportunity to have that, that hallmark activity, the pinnacle, like to have that, rubber stamp of like, you did the job,
right.
And you assess and move on. But that opportunity, I think, can be rare in business. And I liked having that experience as a professional, and then kind of got hooked on that.
Yeah, it's almost like competition, right? Because you get there is a day, there's competition day or event day, where all the training, all the planning. I've never
the team coming together.
I have never thought about that as a parallel analogy, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
because you're training and you're planning. Everyone's working. They're doing their own individual things, and then everybody comes together for a performance, a competition day, and the goal is everyone does what they're supposed to do on that day at the highest level they can, and the attendees are the judges.
Yeah,
and then you get your scorecard after the event.
Yes, you do.
In all kinds of forms. Okay, so where did you go after? After there?
So I stayed in sports marketing, moved down to the DC area to work for a golf sports marketing firm, and missed the events aspect, honestly. And so started looking for a role, ideally in technology, that would also weave in, the things that I like to do, and would have, kind of an events component.
Got it.
And that led me to that little.
We can name them. It's
shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
C-Vent.
Yeah.
And you were there for a while, right?
I was there for 9 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of change, especially when did you, what years were you there?
I was there from 2005 to 2013.
Okay.
And when I interviewed, I have such a great relationship with the C-Vent team. I feel like, we can talk more about what my company does and what C-Vent does, but in many ways, complementary, and serving different aspects of the market and the different needs of events, because events is always such a larger, what kind of event,
Right.
And so it's a large definition that requires lots of players.
But you saw a lot of change happen when you were there.
I did.
I read on your LinkedIn, it said, and this is, I guess it's still applicable, but you're all the way to from private to IPO, and now.
Oh yeah.
Now they're not IPO anymore because Blackstone bought them, right?
Yeah, they've had so many milestones in that journey. I was very proud to be a part of, a pre-revenue organization where we didn't even have our own conference space. We used to meet in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese conference room, and Reggie Agarwal would be, sharing the dream, the mission, getting people around this idea that we were going to be something amazing, and we were making the march to 100 million, and then we were going to go public one day. And in my early 20s frame of mind, I'm like, okay, all right, great. And looking back, I'm like, we didn't even have our own meeting space at the time. But we were really making the march, and my first role there was really to run field marketing. We did, Reggie personally did 150 events nationwide a year, with a growing family. So he was, talk about the grind. He was on that grind, making C-Vent a household name. And I worked very closely with him to get him in the market and, sharing what we did. So that was early days. To fast forward to I'm, at the New York Stock Exchange, looking up and watching him and his daughter, ring the bell and celebrating an incredible milestone. And we did it.
Yeah.
He wasn't joking when we were in that rented meeting space, 2 floors above our office. Here we are.
Yeah.
So.
And now they're private again.
And now they're private again. Yep. It's been an interesting, interesting ride for Cvent. They were public when I left,
Right.
and then went private, and then went back on the NASDAQ, and now private again. So
Yeah. Well, we will see what happens. I don't want to ask you for any further comment too much, because I'm sure working at Splash, I think on a superficial level, probably people would be like, oh, well, they must be competitors. And obviously you're an executive at Splash, so I don't want you to be on the record giving any official comments. So no worries, no press there. What we're really going to talk to today, and then you spent some time in other places, and now you're chief marketing officer at Splash.
Yep.
I don't want to blur over any of that stuff, but we can reflect into it, because what I want to be cognizant of and make sure everyone knows what we're here to talk about today is really the ability of performance and how it relates to a marketing team, including the events people, because there's almost all event marketers report at some point to a CMO, either to a VP who reports to the CMO, potentially directly to the CMO, something of that nature. And I had a conversation last month with a woman named Shay, who is the head of community and events at Podium Nutrition. And they're a sports supplement company started by CrossFitters.
Oh, cool.
Like championship CrossFitters. Like, it's crazy. And she said when she started her job, she was training to go to the CrossFit Games.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they were launching a brand. So they were launching a brand, and she was training 3 times a day. And this is why I love the fact that these 2 episodes are back to back.
Yeah.
Is because I think one of the things events people tend to get worried about is the perception. If they're gone in the middle of the day, if they leave to go work out, because I've had to deal with this personally.
Yeah.
So event marketers, you're on notice right now. Like, we're going to have the conversation that you potentially should have with your boss if taking care of yourself is important to you. And we're gonna get Kate's thoughts here on why you should make that time for yourself. So that's what we're gonna dig into today. And if there's epiphanies that came from roles between that or during that to now, feel free to share those.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just kind of get into it in the sense of, one of the things she said is when she was interviewing, she was like, hey, I'm really excited about this role, but I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I train 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And so I'd be curious kind of what your thoughts would be if someone came to you and they said, look, I decided I wanted to set a BHAG for myself.
Yeah.
I want to grow myself as a person. I want to go after something. But in order to do that, it's going to seemingly impact my work. It's not actually. I'm still going to get my work done. I'm going to promise you that. And I want you to hold me accountable if something slips. But I want to do something that's going to impact the perception of my work. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like, how, it's probably easy to sit here right now, but like, Camille, hi Camille.
Yeah.
If she came to you and was like, I want to run a marathon, how, like, what would you say to that?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and that's happening with my team right now, and has happened in the past. Thankfully, and in my search for Splash, for my role that came to be, being the CMO at Splash, I was looking for a company that had the values to let me embrace what I wanted to do and let me be the sort of leader that I wanted to be. So I think if you do find yourself at an organization where it's a non-starter to invest in yourself in any way, whether it's, school, fitness, even, parent life and the boundaries that you need to create. I think it's about, personal boundaries and what you need to, be alive, essentially.
Yeah.
And for my team, we have a value of take care at Splash that we hold very
slogan
dear.
sounds familiar.
Yes, that does. That does sound familiar. Dave and I have been doing some work on that. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we top down truly hold that dear. So that's taking what we call like a mental escape day if you need to for whatever reason take that mental health day, to putting the mask on first in other areas. And a lot of that related to fitness. We do have golden hours. So something that, I think helps in this scenario is saying like, these are the hours that I am available, and how does that line up with kind of the golden hours of the company? And people have to shuck and jive a little bit with
What is a golden hour?
So a golden hour would be when everybody is available for meetings, like when we could have town halls as an example. So just as like kind of a mental note of like company meetings or company time could take up this 9 to 11 Eastern time slot, and our folks in Europe are available at that time or kind of have that time noted. So no like repeated meetings that would that you couldn't one-on-ones or team meetings at that time. You would ultimately block that off to be available. And so just deciding, I think that is a good tactic for us as we try to navigate a remote world. We're a remote first global company. So we need to have, that agreed upon, hey, we can all be available to get, face to face, whether, virtually, or of course we have like in-person time. But yeah, I think it's a conversation that people absolutely have to have with their manager. And honestly, my feeling is if you're not working at a place that embraces your whole person, you might want to think about where you can land that will.
Fair enough. What would be important for someone to include in it if they came to you to have this conversation? I love thinking tactics and operations. Like I always like to connect dots for people, right? Like if someone came to you to have this conversation that they were going to train for the CrossFit Games or run a marathon, what are the things that you'd be looking to hear from that person that make you think, okay, this person understands, like I can trust this person. I want to empower them. I want to make sure that this is something that they can go after. Like what are the things that they should come to that meeting prepared with?
Yeah. So I think how proactive you are in the schedule, the plan, the CrossFit Games are at this point, I won't be able to travel from, here to here. What are the details so you can plan to support someone? We also do every 4 years a sabbatical at Splash. And so it's the same thing. Like how do we as a team all come together to, facilitate a sabbatical for another teammate? And so it's the same amount of planning for that. So I would say come with the details around your schedule and availability, and be upfront about that, so your manager has an understanding of what's ahead and can plan capacity. And there's always a ton of things going on, especially in events. So how does this impact those big initiatives? Try to minimize that as much as possible. I mean, I think the two-way street comes into play, of course, and trying to another Splash value, but like co-create that schedule or co-create that plan is very similar to like what we need to do for parental leaves, sabbaticals, but more on a day-to-day basis because it's, training focused. But there are those times where, you might be tapering for an event and you don't want to be going to, a 5-day conference where you're probably going to be, working until 2 a.m. or whatever it is. So like, how are you going to manage through that? And what's the best, setup so you can essentially have it all? And then when I think about, the team members that I trust to do this, it's, proactive, of course, like scheduling, but also, proactive communication and like reminders, heads up, like, next week this is happening. And they're really on it in terms of not only the workload, but also reminding me that this is kind of our agreed upon plan. There's a lot going on. I don't always remember everybody's personal schedules or kind of have that on my brain. So I think it's, it's important to not only decide on those details, but then remind and communicate those details to your manager, to your team, so everybody's on the same page at any given point. There's no ambiguity. There's no, I'm not sure what's going on. And it feels like over communicating every time, but I feel like that's how it should feel to be effective for the other people who need to support,
Right.
your goals too.
And with that, I think, so one of the things I've had a personal experience of is, then you start getting perceptions outside of the team and or other teammates maybe who maybe that isn't a shared value in the sense of like, so-and-so doesn't want to run a marathon. They don't even like to go to the gym. It's just not their thing. And then that person starts griping.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know this wasn't on the outline, but it's just kind of.
Yeah, no, this is real talk right here.
This is what makes me happy because I think a lot of people get uncomfortable and they're like, well, I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the time. My boss wants so much of me. I don't want to let my teammates down. How would you deal with those perceptions of someone be like, what, like, why aren't they here 14 hours a day like I am? They're just like leaving in the middle of the day and going to the gym. How is that fair? How would you handle that?
Yeah.
As from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and that's hard because I feel like even though I think of the mindset of, like take care and embracing like the whole person, sometimes like I'm like, okay, just because somebody's not working 14 hours a day in the formal capacity doesn't mean that they're not working. Just kind of like shedding the principles of like managers past, and I'm like, it's okay, Kate, you can go for a run in the middle of the day to like recharge your batteries. I think one of the things that I try to do is model it. Is model that balance. Tell people I'm going for a walking meeting, turn on my camera when I'm on the treadmill, doing those things, doing things for me. We have a Fitness at Splash Slack channel where I'm super active, showing that I'm doing things for myself, because I think first and foremost, as any manager at any level, people don't see you doing it, they're not going to feel comfortable. So I think that has to come from the management side, and then also like celebrating it, like acknowledging the whole person who is on your team, and you'd congratulate somebody on having a child, like congratulate somebody on accomplishing an incredible goal that they've like poured their whole life into, basically. Right. And making sure that you hold those things equal. Because I think society-wise, we have a tendency to say like this is more important than this, and I think the goals and passions and activities of my team, should be equal.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I think the next thing I'd want to segue into is the why behind that. I know why I find having a goal important. Why do you, as someone who's managing a high performing team, why is that important to have those goals? And when on the outside looking in, it seems like this person isn't around as much as some other people and whatnot. Why is it important to foster that and encourage that person to go after those goals? How does it impact their work?
Yeah, I mean, I think short term, you get a better product, whatever that product is, by allowing people to explore their passions, do things for themselves that are important to their basic needs. I mean, like on the hierarchy of needs, it's certainly, and I think we all learned that lesson more so during COVID, like what's really important, priorities, taking care of our bodies. Like it's more of a cultural movement than it ever has been. And I think burnout culture is something that, is a term that people are using and aware of. And I think from a day-to-day perspective, if you are accommodating people's lives and allowing them to, work to live, long term, you're going to have better loyalty, better overall product and outcomes for the organization. people want, I want to work hard for somebody who deeply cares about me as a person and not just, the grind that I show up with. I feel like, that's like the basic psychology of it. And then when you have when you have this type of culture, it's also happier. It feels good. Like we've all been on those Zooms or in-person meetings where people are exhausted, and especially in events, it's impossible to not be exhausted. So you're going to go through those times where you're asking more of people. So I feel like in events, event marketing, whatever it is, you have to make sure that people put the mask on first and genuinely care about that. Otherwise, you're not going to attract and retain great people who take your company next level. So,
yeah. And for those of you who don't know, we'll share the meme of the put your own mask on first. Mm-hmm. If you travel, you know exactly what that means. You've been on even if you've ever been on an airplane once,
yeah.
you know the analogy of put your own oxygen mask on first before you help others. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that a lot, which is I love the way you're just saying it so nonchalantly. Mm-hmm. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
When I shared that meme, I think it was a year or so ago, I was like, maybe this will resonate with some people. But I love the fact that we've talked and that's kind of stuck.
Yeah. Well, it was something that I used to tell my team back at Privia Health. I was working in healthcare and had, startup grind team and had one of those type A high performers. And I was like, you have to put the mask on. She traveled a lot too. Like so she was burning the candle at both ends. I'm like, you have to put the mask on first. And that was like her eureka moment. I was like, I had to pull in like the airplane reference to like get her, kind of dialed in. I'm like, you are no good to us if you're no good to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're not good to yourself, period. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that's really helpful. Hopefully people get some insights. If there's something you've been wanting to do that you're worried about talking to your manager or your department head about, I think to succinctly sum it up is have a clear plan, set expectations, and then communicate like crazy. Include it in your weekly updates. Include it in your block the time off in your calendar. Those kinds of things so that your team understands what's going on. And then when you're available, make sure you're really available. Mm-hmm. Be viciously protective of your training time if you need to, even if it's like she was doing 3 times a day. She worked out in the morning, at lunch, and then like after work. And I was like, that seems insane. And she's
Sounds like college to me.
It was insane. And I was like, okay. And she was also eating like 4,000 calories a day. I was like, yeah, sure, it sounds just like college, but that's elite athleticism, right? That's what it takes. Mm-hmm. But even if it's not, if you're doing a triathlon for the first time or like a mini something, make the time for your training. And talk to your manager. Let them know, hey, I want to accomplish this, because inevitably you are going to perform better at work by taking the time for yourself.
Yeah. And I would say take people on the journey too. Like inspire your team by sharing, oh my gosh, I did my training run was awesome. Thanks everybody for the time. Like acknowledge how people are supporting you, but also take them on the journey. Like people want to see you succeed, want to know that you've completed your, semester, your 3rd semester at business school. I did B school at CVent. So it was, one of those things where I had to leave early to go to business school at night. And that was really important. I think, rallying my team at that time around like this personal goal that I was trying to accomplish and was supported, was embraced by the team. And even though I had to leave, people used to joke and be like, oh, half day, as I was leaving at like 5:30 because, we were trying to grow a company and we all know how that went. But, that I think is a really important piece of it too, is just, communicating that side of it.
Yeah, those snarky ass remarks.
Yeah, exactly. But you always have to have a good
Where's
comeback
that person
those.
now? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So I think given that you are in the space in a very significant way, I thought we'd spend the last few minutes here kind of talking industry and trends and whatnot. Do you want to give an official PR approved, because you're in charge of PR. Description of what Splash is.
Yeah.
And just so that people understand your vantage point as we get into like what's happening in the industry and whatnot.
Yeah. So quite simply, from a Splash perspective, we do everyday events at scale. So how you need to get in touch with
Spoken like a true marketer.
But we, everyday events being different from your, tier one, once a year annual conference. That's not our bread and butter. What we're trying to do is elevate an event marketer so that they can, amplify their brand, grow the business, be self-sufficient, collaborate, and ultimately like measure their results and get to do more of what works, because we know events crush it. But that's what Splash does. We facilitate all of those things and allow everyday events at scale, essentially, repeat what's working and be able to build an entire event program as opposed to, a one-off or an annual event. What are you going to do, 362 days a year when, you're not at your annual conference to engage your stakeholders? And engagement isn't going to come from a piece of content or a great community piece. It's got to be through a deeper connection, and we know that comes from either engaging virtual events or hybrid events or in real life.
Okay, fair enough. By the full disclosure, I am a Splash customer. I think you probably would have come on even if I wasn't, because I only recently became a customer. So
I'm here for the wellness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So wellness has always been important to you. We know that there was a lot of shift during COVID because people had more time. They weren't commuting. I think that's where people figured out they had so much more time than they ever thought they had before. Is the commutes went away and they're like, oh, I'm already home. I have time. Some people, it seemed like people kind of went one of two ways. They either like gained the COVID-19 or they lost the COVID-19. That's what I'm calling it, because people put on some pounds or lost some pounds. Because I know for me, when travel stopped, I could eat consistently. And that's the big challenge with being on the road and whatnot, is finding the right food.
Yeah.
But wellness got a whole lot of importance. What are some of the best trends and what are some of the worst trends you've seen come out? I call the worst trends wellness washing.
Okay. Yeah.
What are some of those things that you've seen people doing at various events to either incorporate events or potentially thinking they're incorporating wellness and not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe we'll start with the good.
Yes, always start with the good.
Let's start with the good. Most recently, I feel like there's been an acknowledgement of alcohol at events, which I feel like is a good, thing to examine as an industry of how we're set up and what options are available, whether, people are sober or pregnant or, on a fitness journey or whatever. I think that is a wellness trend that really probably came from COVID, because I think the COVID-19 gainers or the people that were like on a specific path were like, I've explored that deeply, the depths of my beer fridge, and I need to come back and check myself from a wellness perspective, and then I think some of the stuff that we're trying to push together with you and in terms of a take care message and wellness at events, these moments of serenity of where can you kind of take refuge? How do you plan an agenda that allows for a break? How do you, plan that within your venue and the landscape of how your event is architected in terms of just those places for a quiet moment. Those things I think are really interesting trends. And then something that I feel passionate about pushing is just a track in the morning that is community-based, fitness-based, wellness-based, before you get your day going, similar to what we were talking about before, starting your day with movement and figuring out what that means for your attendees. Doesn't have to be a CrossFit workout. movement means different things to different people, and how you want to spike your cortisol is up to you, but understanding, the flavors of how you can bring that into your event and giving space for that. It was really awesome at the Splash offsite that we do at Splash Giving every November. We had a morning like yoga and meditation session, which was awesome. And the timing worked out so that, you could go for a run or lift in the gym or do, what you needed to do before that, or, before breakfast, to get that time in for yourself. And I loved that intentional agenda and planning. So I think a lot of that has changed more recently, and I am so for those trends, because for those of us who have traveled from event to event, and you're on that grind now yourself, like, how do you work that into your schedule, and how do you make that a part of every day? Because you absolutely cannot just do that in networking, content absorption without having that that type of balance.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I've been noticing just in the real world, the mocktails and zero proof and things of that nature. I think zero proof is almost a better name for it, because 9 times out of 10, when I see a mocktail, like, the first thing I go, all right, let's see what's in it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not worried about the alcohol, but, like, I don't want to ingest more sugar than a can of Coke.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to take the healthy alternative of not, like, for those people who went down that path of drinking more than they wanted to, let's put it that way, over the course of the pandemic, and then kind of coming out of that and realizing, so, you don't sleep well when you drink. Sure, you pass out at first, but you don't wake up rested. You wake up feeling groggy, and because it's inflammatory, just like sugar is.
Yep.
So the idea of just removing the alcohol but then substituting a bunch of sugar, you're actually really not doing. It could be argued that it is better, but what I've started to see is actually really genuine zero proof cocktails that are using flavored club sodas, and I'm blanking on the word now, but not probiotics, but
like adaptogens.
Yes, adaptogens. That's it. Yep. Editing, feel free to leave that whole mental struggle in. But they're incorporating. They're actually thinking through what these mocktails are, so that you can. And they serve them in a pretty glass. And I went to an event, a preview meetings event last year, and they had a CBD beverage that was like in a light bulb.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, I love this.
Yeah.
And they put a little piece of dry ice in it, and I was like, see, like, you can be creative without the alcohol. I think that's one of the things I'd really like to see our industry events get better at. IMEX was, everybody had a happy hour. Nobody had with alcohol, but, like, you'd be like, oh, do you have anything non-alcoholic? And they're like, we have Coke, Diet Coke. And I'm like,
yeah,
come on, guys, we can do better.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think this year we're going to see everyone I meet, if they're exhibiting at IMEX, I've been challenging them to have, there was this little underground hashtag called Drymex.
Yeah.
Where people were not drinking and going to bed by like 10 o'clock every night. Which is not normally how industry events go.
No.
So it was like this fun little underground movement of, like, we're going to be the swim upstream and take care of ourselves at a party heavy event. So I'm going to be curious to see what happens this year. Tahira is one of the people I'd have at my wellness table, and she's going to be on the show at some point, I think. And she is at IMEX, so we've had some conversations. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I think some of the people will do some fun things there.
Yeah, I think organizers have a real opportunity there, and I would say, like, some of the trends that like the candy bar and the protein bar form that can be at, like, the snack table for a little break, like. If you don't have a background, if you don't feel confident in, like, nutrition to evaluate, like, what you're presenting to your attendees, definitely talk to somebody who can help guide you. Because I feel like, the checkbox, oh, we're doing wellness, we have this right here, and it's like, that has more sugar than my entire 2 days of intake, or at least, so I think that's an important thing to to think about too. The like halfway effort, and certainly like well-intentioned, but that's definitely where I feel like where we are stuck at the moment. Blanket statement across the industry. I know some people are really doing a nice job, and we need to bring everybody along.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was alluding to when I said what people aren't doing so well. I think there's a lot of effort, which it takes me back to the early days of sustainability at events.
Yeah.
Like people were trying to do what's great is their hearts and their minds are in the right place. I think it's just it's the opportunity to then advance that opportunity for education where you're almost there.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, you bought the protein bars. Awesome. But yes, they're a candy bar disguised as a protein bar. But what I'd like to start seeing is, I've written into my RFPs to some properties, like if the snack items aren't, don't meet dietary requirements,
Yeah.
we have the right to bring in our own thing. And I would go out and just buy cases of like beef or turkey jerky.
Yeah.
Bring in turkey jerky for the breaks because people are like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And especially as people are understanding fitness and they're understanding nutrition more and more, the public's knowledge is increasing and they're getting more discerning. And back to those scorecards post-performance, that's all going to come back to you as to when you make those efforts. I think you make the effort to up level it and not just be like, well, we gotta do something healthy. Oh, there's protein bars. Like look at the macros before you serve protein bars.
Yeah.
Or anything of that nature. If you're gonna do smoothies, let people add protein to them. Things of that nature. So that and I think we're getting there. It's just
Yeah. And I think as a community we can do more knowledge sharing around that. Like that's not a like competitive secret in some ways that people want to like hold dear. I think that there's an opportunity to help.
We're doing it right now.
And you're doing it right now. But I think we can help each other in this way. And not everybody is an expert, and that's okay. But I think we have so many resources, and I know after like from the pandemic and after that this community comes together, wants to help each other. There's such camaraderie within event marketers, event planners. We all know this journey, and it's unique, and we're a certain type of performance-driven people.
Just had an idea.
Yeah.
We should start a wellness channel on the Splash community.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that.
Because the community's open, right?
Yes,
Isn't the Splash
open.
community open?
It is open and ready for business.
Okay, well then let's do
anyone
it.
who would like to join, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay,
Love
so
that.
we're gonna do that.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll work through it and we'll put out an announcement. But I think for people who are watching this, you can join the Splash Slack. It's on Slack community
on Slack,
for free.
yeah.
It's open to anyone, regardless of if you're a customer or not. I think maybe that would be a great way to start talking through these things of like share your menus, share what you're proposing, and like we have people here who can help and give feedback and.
I'd love that. Yeah.
I don't know.
That would be great. It's a community that is meant to be a knowledge share of event marketing best practices and things like that. Not a product based community.
Actually, I've probably gotten quicker responses from people who don't work for Splash than I have for Splash. Sorry, but I will say it is not a place for. It's not like a come talk to these people and then we're going to get you indoctrinated into the cult of Splash because
Although you're welcome.
I'm sure, but it I will say that 90% of the activity I see is not from Splash people. It is from fellow community members, and there's a lot of people on there, so it's great. I really enjoy being a part of it. So we'll start a wellness channel. There you go. You can bring menu ideas, fitness ideas, hacks, things you've had success with.
That'd be great. That's awesome.
Sorry.
No.
My bad.
No, I'm fully embrace I love our community, and so I think the ways we can expand it, and like I said, help each other.
Yeah.
It's not we're not giving away deep competitive secrets, and there's so much creativity that people are bringing. I mean, just in our customer base alone, like blown away by what people are doing just from a wellness and creative perspective.
Well, and I think the events industry is pretty good when it comes to a rising tide lifts all ships, right? And if we're all getting healthier as humans, we all start performing better because we're optimizing not just our bodies but our minds. We were discussing before that these new studies that are coming out about when you contract your muscles literally excrete proteins that go into your brain, prevent your hippocampus from shrinking, and help fight off depression, Alzheimer's, things of that nature. So it's really exciting times to see that the fact that 20 years ago people started doing these studies, and now the results are coming out, and they're like, this is no brainer.
Yeah. And we want to be in this for a while. Like I want events to change because I want to be going to events.
Well, that's how you survive an event too. Is because you do all that training beforehand so that you're ready.
Yep.
Because if you're just sitting in a chair all day leading up to the event, you're like, the event is just going to own you. You are not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, it is. It is the busiest days.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think with that, we're just at about time. Yeah. Any closing thoughts you'd like to share, or like maybe something that you remind yourself on a fairly regular basis to stay active, and besides put your mask on first? Yeah.
I just I have something on my desk that's, essentially like you aren't what you say you do. You are what you do. And so I want to make sure every day that I am an active person, a person of movement. I fall off the wagon all the time. So I could tell you like what my wellness practices are, and I try to adhere to them the best I can. But the one thing that I always do is get back up. And I think, we all have those challenges in life, whether it's, personal or professional, that you can't kind of adhere to the, to the exact rules that you've set for yourself. But I think it's been really important for me to just continuously get back on the horse, keep at it, and keep learning too. I think there's, like you said, so much opportunity, to embrace this research that's out. So even if you are a fitness junkie, like those of us in the room,
there's only two of us in the room, by the way.
Yeah. But the collective room, right, I'm sure.
You're breaking the fourth wall.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's my advice. Just keep getting back on the horse, and let's keep learning together, and hopefully see you in our new wellness community that we're going to establish tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you heard it. It'll be up tomorrow, which means by the time this airs, it should be up and running. We'll put a link in the bottom so that you can go join it if you want. I think the thing I would probably share that I've taken away from some methodology I started training during the pandemic was something over nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You don't always, just because you can't get in an hour workout doesn't mean a half hour isn't still worthwhile. Something over nothing is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one's been hard for me to embrace, but I'm better now than I was, because it serves as a good excuse. Like, I don't have an hour, how could I ever get in a good workout? Like, you get in a good workout in 10 minutes, 7 minutes.
Do 7 minutes of burpees.
Right, yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be ready for your next, 4-day event.
Yes, exactly. Okay, awesome. Kate, thank you so much. Thank you to Olympian Meetings for sponsoring us, and we will see you in the next episode in April.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. This was fun.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.